Thank you, Toda. For those of you who are surprised and expecting to see another Elazari here, my name is Amit, Dr. Amit Elazari. I'm Karen's sister. She is unfortunately sick today. But I know she's very excited to see some of you in B-Sides, hopefully, and it is my absolute honor to try to step in here and moderate this amazing panel. So nice to meet you. I'm the CEO and co-founder of OpenPolicy. We scale policy intelligence. We work with companies like Wiz, Snowflake, and many more. And I'm extremely honored to have here Nataly Kremer. She is the Chief Product Officer and Head of Research and Development at Checkpoint. Big supporter of this, of course, conference. So really honored to have you here. And we are going to be really drilling down into this whole area of the interaction of AI and security and the attack surface. And so let me kick off kind of with a key question here. We are all here talking about AI. It's certainly shaping the policy landscape. But maybe, Nataly, you can share more about how AI is helping attackers to really scale their attacks, personalize their attack. How is it making a difference?
Yeah, so exactly as you said, let's start with phishing, right? The most common attack vector. So what we see is that using AI, there are no more culture and language barriers. You can personalize the phishing the best way because you can do research significantly using AI through all the social networks and learn about the attack target and do a multi-channel phishing attack, which is very, very optimized. Second, you can do that at scale, right? You can run attacks at scale. If you look at ransomware as an example, we saw already a year ago, our research team found a ransomware tool called FunkSec, which allowed the user to create their own ransomware, which spread within a month globally, and the user had no technical background. So we see more and more people joining crime organization, cybercrime organization with no technical background because all you need is criminal intent. You don't need any tools. And if you think about orchestration, we see cases where the entire orchestration of an attack is done using AI very fast. You've read all about Anthropic talking about how the Chinese campaigns use 80% of AI using Claude in their campaigns, and if a nation like China that doesn't need manpower is using AI, then what does it say about others? So we see AI across all the attack vectors used to scale and make the attacks much faster.
Yeah, that's a critical point, and what we're recognizing here, at least from a policy, from a government perspective, is that there is this recognition that AI is changing, right? It's changing the game. We need to have, policies that are adapting to AI, and we need organizations to really understand that the attack surface has shifted, and so they're going to need to ramp up on their governance, and they're going to need to, make sure that they scale their defenses. But as we are continuing this kind of a thread on the expansion of the attack surface, right, with new agentic attacks, the use of AI, let's drill down a little bit more. What about the speed of the attack? What about the kind of timelines to react, et cetera?
I think speed is the most important factor if you look at the change of AI bring to the cyber world. If attacks that used to take weeks of planning and manual work now can take 10 minutes, the time to exploit is really shortened. What we see is different tools that are used to use maybe we saw our research team found a tool that is used to orchestrate 150 agents that help you scan and take a vulnerability and make an exploit out of it. And using these tools, you can run the attacks much faster. And the problem is it doesn't give the companies enough time to prepare against such an attack. And if you think about vulnerabilities also and creating vulnerabilities, then in case the code is open, we see many tools like Google talked about using a tool called Big Sleep to look at the open source code and find vulnerabilities on Chrome. So it's much easier to find vulnerabilities, especially on open source, of course, but then taking a vulnerability and make it make an exploit and understand what you need, everything you need about the target organization and find a way to get there is much more faster. The good thing is AI is helping also the defenders to work faster. So for us, as an example, signatures that would take us hours to create based on a vulnerability now takes us minutes. So the defenders are becoming stronger and faster, and also the attackers, and that makes a huge difference. And everything is running on steroids.
Yeah, I think that's a phenomenal perspective. We like to think about, we always talk about in cybersecurity this idea of defense, right, and attack, and the nature of the, asymmetric relationships that are already inherent in cyber, right, between the attackers and the defenders. The attackers, they only need 0.001%, and the defenders need...
Unfair.
Exactly. Not fair at all, right? And with AI, the network effects and the scale of that is just really making this problem much more significant, but there is that opportunity in defense. So we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it in a second. One of the kind of key things I always like in Cyber Week to give some, anecdotes to the audience, and one of the things that I've experienced and seen at DEF CON is the DARPA challenge, and if we're talking about these changes in speed, in the DARPA challenge, in the AI challenge in Vegas, in DEF CON, one of the largest conferences in the world, they were able to find 54 vulnerabilities, right, using AI in just 4 hours. By the way, many of them not planned, right? These were new opportunities that kind of were found. Let's talk a little bit more about the attack surface itself, because I think there is a lot to unpack there, right? And one of the most interesting vectors that we have seen is the sophistication of supply chain attacks, right? It was always there. It was a very big theme before kind of the rise of LLMs, but now it's really shifting. Can you expand on that?
Yeah. So overall, I would say that AI is the new attack vector, right? If you look at AI, it's a new attack vector. It starts with the employees. When you think about your employees, they want to do everything they can to boost productivity, and they are AI addicts. I am an AI addict, right? I will do everything I can to use AI to boost my productivity, so I use AI every minute of the day. But then what about the data loss that is happening when employees are using shadow AI tools? And we see that all the time. Organizations are unaware of which applications their employees are using, and there is a lot of data loss that's happening through that. Then you have your own AI application, going back to your question. So you develop your own AI applications, and we've recently, a few months ago, we acquired a company in Zurich called Lakera that built their own AI models to protect homegrown AI applications, and they are defending the largest organization in the world. And looking at their data, what we see is the number one method that attackers are using. They are trying to understand the system prompt, right? They are trying to understand what's a system prompt, basically understanding the instruction file of the machine and finding a way to get the system prompt. Once they get it, then they find vulnerabilities. And these are all AI applications that we are using, which is a major problem. And if you think about indirect prompt attacks, which means today in the AI era, think about language is actually the new executable, and LLMs are the first responders. So every information you get into the organization, whether it's email, simple text email is now becoming an executable because there will be an AI agent that will scan it, and there is a risk there. So every content that you are accumulating is now a risk for the organization. And don't get me started on MCPs, right? MCPs, major risk for organization. We said everyone have this FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. So they are downloading all these MCP. They want to get more productivities. We see most of these MCPs are malicious. We see, we've examined 10,000 MCP servers. 40% of them had vulnerabilities. These are all tools being used by organizations. 10% of them had an API key or a way to do path traversal. This is what's being used by organizations today, and it's a huge risk. If we look at the employees, what I mentioned earlier, we have a tool to protect against the risk of data losses and employee usage. We found that 1 out of 50 prompts sent by an employee is high risk. So there is a lot of risk around AI. It's a huge opportunity, We are leaping forward generations, but I feel that we are also going backwards decades in terms of security.
It's such a interesting phenomenon. I think never in my lifetime I've been doing policy for more than a decade. I've seen the policies and the governance and the standards being written and considered at the same time as we're seeing really the rapid changes in the attack surface and the adoption of technology. But then there is such a big opportunity, right, for technology companies to step in with tools, because leadership, executives, they are pushing the adoption of AI. The boardroom is like, where's your AI?
Do you feel like it's more than any other revolution we've seen? Like I felt that on cloud revolution, it took time, people were cautious. Here I feel the CISOs feel like they have no choice, they have to run.
Exactly, that is the point. I can tell you from a policy perspective, we had years to contemplate things like, hey, how should policies in operational technology look? How should policy in Internet of Things look? How should policies in cloud look? And here, literally NIST and the standard bodies are recreating the agentic security framework as we speak, because the framework from a year ago did not contemplate. Yeah. And so we have great organizations like OASP and others. And I think the Israeli community has been great in contribution, right, to educate so many of the stakeholders about the threats. So there is absolutely an opportunity here, I think, and I would just share, understand what you have in your stack, right? Not a new concept in security, right? What are your assets? But now with AI, like, you really need to know where you're using AI in the organization. One more kind of very important, trend we've seen is we talked a little bit about that, but the development of software, right? We're talking about a new era of development of software, and now we have kind of the low-code, no-code revolution, and the vibe coding, right? And then we already talked about how that impacts attack surface, right? With very potentially non-savvy hackers being able to leverage techniques at scale. How is this kind of impacting the risk, this whole no-code revelation?
So again, a great example of productivity boost that has lots of risk involved. So we see more and more developers, or actually non-developers, writing code using vibe coding. And what we see happen is that they don't understand the code that they are writing, and they don't understand the security risk involved in the code that they are writing, right? So even with no intention, we see more and more vulnerability due to this vibe coding. That's one thing. And the other major concern is intentional, right? The ability to get code through these processes that is intentional and malicious. We've asked our team to just look at the vulnerabilities of this development framework. Within a month, it was very easy to find 10 vulnerabilities in the most popular development framework, and we are talking about severe vulnerabilities. And we have many examples for that, and that's a major risk, because these are the tools that our developers are using, or the non-developers.
Phenomenal perspective. So this is Cyber Week. We're going to leave our audience here with a call to action. So let me ask you, from your perspective, kind of top line, how defenders must adapt, right, their point of view about the world, their point of view about technology to address, right, this new revolution? Well,
I think it starts exactly as you said, with the visibility. Let's start with understanding what we have. When we meet organizations, they say, oh, but we have a policy that doesn't allow this tool or the other tool. Well, it doesn't help. You need to make sure this policy is enforced. And when we run the tools on this organization, then we find out they have 50 different AI tools that they didn't even think they had. But I think the magic is to find a way to allow this productivity and not just block all AI tools, but to allow to do that in the right way. So make sure the policy is enforced and sensitive information is not shared, or shared only with tools that are designed for that. And then that's just for the employee usage. Then the homegrown application, you need to understand which homegrown AI application you have. It doesn't matter if they are customer-facing or internal-facing, they have significant risk embedded to them, and you need to have runtime protection or some kind of LLM gateway with the AI protection for that. You need to protect your agents. With agents, all hell breaks loose, right? We see organization already with thousands of agents running. Sometimes you don't think about them as agents because they are running on your third-party SaaS applications, whatever it can be, SharePoint or ServiceNow, and they have these agents. And it goes back to the basic principles of security, least privileges, right? Make sure you don't have access to things that you shouldn't. It's not just about security, it's also quality. Sometimes this agent can go rogue and, delete things or change things unintentionally, so you need to care about that. And of course, you need to do AI red teaming. Continually test your AI application against any vulnerabilities and so on.
So fantastic, actionable advice here for the audience. Such a pleasure, Nataly. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you to the audience.